Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Planet X News, November 30th, 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to give everybody a short update on Dr. Albers' condition. First things first, I'd really like to thank everybody who has been contributing to her medical fund. Her first chelation appointment is going to be coming up in about a month, December 29th. And, it's going to be a very, very trying time. The process is going to take anywhere between 4 and 6 months. We are still a little far away from the financial goal of covering these bi-weekly chelation appointments. So there is a link in the description box under this video if anyone would like to contribute and help out. Because, number one, Dr. Albers does not have health insurance. And, what I found out very early on is that health insurance, even if she had it, would not cover chelation therapy to try and rid her body of this mercury poisoning. And, just to bring anybody new up to date, she had some silver fillings in her mouth many, many years ago. And about 5 years ago, she had those silver fillings removed under a doctor's order. And mercury that was within those silver fillings had leaked into her bloodstream, and it has been causing her over these last several years very chronic problems, and it has gotten to the point now where it is just about crippling, and the situation is rather serious. And just like I said before, we're hoping for the best once these therapy appointments begin, and we're hoping that they work and they're able to rid her body of this mercury, as much of it as possible, to literally stop the damage that is occurring. So that link is in the description box under this video. Any help, any prayers would be greatly appreciated. Now, let's move to what is happening out there with our sun. I've talked about this for quite some time. The sun in this solar minimum. What is going to be happening once the sun starts to move out of the solar minimum and slowly into the solar maximum, meaning much, much more solar activity naturally? My theory is, and I think that I have probably pretty much proved it, is that the interaction of these Planet X stellar core objects that I've been recording for years now, their magnetic fields are obviously interacting with the sun. To me, there is no doubt about it. Now, if you would ask any astronomer or astrophysicist about this type of situation, leaving out the Planet X factor, let's just ask that question of the astronomer or the astrophysicist. If a medium-sized star such as our sun encountered, let's just say a brown dwarf or a white dwarf or a red dwarf moving in very close, having the sun capture it within its gravity, would the magnetic fields of each star interact? Would the smaller dwarf star be able to pull plasma from the sun? creating coronal mass ejections, creating magnetic disturbances on the sun that lead to these eruptions. So, if you leave out the Planet X factor and you ask the question, as I just stated, these astronomers and astrophysicists would 99.9% of the time say yes, of course. Those interactions between those magnetic fields, if close enough and strong enough, would cause this type of effect. And this is what I've been worrying about and thinking about and researching the whole entire time that we've been in this solar minimum and now moving out of it. So, yeah, some of this does sound like some scary science, but it is a science. And we're going to have to see what happens. Now, this sunspot 2786, and there's a few other sunspots floating around out in front of it that are rather small, but this sunspot is facing Earth. It's below the equatorial region of the sun, almost in the same area where the Earth faces the sun. So the Earth is just slightly below the sun's equator. And we're over here at spaceweather.com, and they've been keeping up on these coronal mass ejections and so on and so forth. And Mark over at Wages World has been doing some fantastic live streams daily, sometimes even twice a day, detailing all of the information that is coming out. Now, there's no massive threat to the Earth at this point in time. But this sunspot, I believe, is very, very unstable, and it has been unleashing a lot of discharges, coronal mass ejections, and we'll take a look at some of those. We'll also be taking a look at what these coronal mass ejections are revealing, and it is amazing. So, yesterday, I'll read directly from what Space Weather has posted. And right up here it says, possible CME impact. A CME launched by yesterday's M-class 4.4 solar flare might sideswipe the Earth's magnetic field on or about December 1st or 2nd. So that's coming up rather quickly, and that's according to NOAA's analysts. The glancing blow, if it occurs, is expected to cause no more than minor G1 class geomagnetic storms with auroras over high northern latitudes. So that means that, up there from, I'd say mid-Canada all the way down to the border of Canada and the United States might see some fantastic auroras. Also in the Nordic countries, and Norway and Sweden, so they should get one hell of a light show. Here is a brief little photo GIF that they show this eruption, and I've been following it since this 2786 sunspot was revealed, and when I saw it, I said to myself, oh boy, that looks like a game changer. And it has produced some pretty spectacular coronal mass ejections. We can click on this. This will give you a little closer view of this sunspot. Quite a large sunspot for, let's just say, this point in time during the transition from a solar minimum to a solar maximum. So this is definitely going to be something to watch over time. And what I mean is, as the sun moves into solar maximum, we will see a multitude of these sunspots. Some of them will rotate through, dissipate, and, well, maybe no action at all. But now, my theory, my hypothesis, depending on the location of these sunspots, just above or just below the equatorial region of the sun, they may and probably will interact with these stellar core objects as they are speeding and orbiting around the sun. So we're going to have to watch this very, very closely. And we could go ahead and zoom in here, and you could get a pretty good look at what that sunspot looks like. It's not dissipating. It's not breaking up. I don't think it's going anywhere. And don't be surprised if 2786 makes a complete revolvement. Excuse me. I was lost for words there for a minute. Don't be surprised if it revolves all the way around and comes back again. It may get bigger. It may get smaller. It may stay the same size. But we will see. We will definitely see. Okay, I'm going to jump out of here. And I wanted to show you guys what is occurring on the sun as we speak. Now, I'm over here at the Solar Dynamics Observatory, and we're going to have a lot of views of this sunspot, and you could see it. You could see it right here. And there's another smaller sunspot over here, and another one way over here that is revolving out of our view. I'm going to go ahead and pan down a little bit. We've already taken a look at this sunspot in a still photograph. And as you can see, it is revolving away from the Earth. We'll go down, take another look at it. Pretty impressive. Like I said, for this point in time, going out of the, leading out of the solar minimum, going into the solar maximum, it is quite impressive to see this many sunspots form that quickly. And these are just more views of the sunspot from the camera systems on the Solar Dynamics Observatory, the SDO, as we refer to it. These are a little more spectacular. This is a composite, and you can see this active region is just, you can literally see what looks like lightning bolts jumping back and forth, back and forth. That's a connection, reconnection, connection, reconnection. These very, very large plasma loops. More activity over here. That is where this latest coronal mass ejection occurred. And a lot of people have been asking, why aren't these coronal mass ejections discharging towards the Earth? Well, that depended on the orbital path of these objects, especially the main stellar core, which is just absolutely massive. We estimated, maybe between 3 and 5 times the size of Jupiter. But many people ask, well, why can't we see it passing in front of the face of the sun? But you have to remember, folks, that this object is in a very acute, eccentric, and ecliptic orbit. It's really not going to pass in front of the sun as we can see it from Earth. It's just not visible that way. So when we see these disturbances, and I've mentioned this before, we're going to see these disturbances, these coronal mass ejections occur on the western and eastern limb of the sun, the left and the right. The majority of the time, they will be near or just below the halfway point of the sun. And that's what's been occurring for quite some time now. I've shown all of you, the evidence. And every now and then, we'll be able to capture this object, up around here or up around here as it's orbiting in this elliptical and eccentric orbit. And it does drop below the sun's equatorial region, and it drops below the ecliptic, which means it actually drops way below the halfway point of our solar system. And then it slingshots back upward and around the sun. If it did not do this, and just like the old Nibiru theory, it came in on a 3,600 year orbit, looped around the sun, and then shot back out. If that was the facts about Nibiru, then it would be gone already. Like I've said before, folks, the whole story with Nibiru, it's more of a government psyop story than truth. The fact of the matter is, I don't think that the government really knew what we were in for or what was coming. And I kind of put this just like, say for instance, Jupiter and all of the moons that Jupiter has captured over the years. And just recently, over the last couple of years, astronomers have detected that Jupiter has captured many, many more moons. And Jupiter is considered a planet, not a star. So if a planet the size of Jupiter can capture large moons, set them into very close orbit around itself, then why can people not comprehend the possibility that our sun, that has a much stronger magnetic field and gravitational field, why couldn't our sun capture even one rogue object that possibly came by? Do you see my point? These aren't just theories. It's just not a hypothesis. It is what happens in our solar system, throughout this galaxy, and throughout all of the universe. We are not that unique in this solar system. If you think close-mindedly and you think that our solar system cannot grow, well, you need to take those blinders off and realize that yes, our solar system can grow. And it has grown. Just looking at what I was referring to about Jupiter and the extra moons that Jupiter has acquired. That means that our solar system has grown right in front of our eyes during this lifetime. But I think mainstream science, they'll tell you about that. Because that doesn't bother the Earth, Jupiter gaining extra moons. But our sun pulling in and setting other objects larger than Jupiter into an orbit around itself, creating massive disturbances on the sun, and at one point in time, someday in the future, may affect the Earth. It may affect life on Earth as we know it today. It could happen, and it probably will. Will it happen in our lifetime? Nobody can say. But eventually, the laws of probability, as I've mentioned before, it will happen. And the Earth is not always going to be here. The destruction of this planet is inevitable. It's not going to be here forever. That's a fact. Our sun is not going to be here forever. It will eventually burn itself out. And it too will become a burned out star. It too eventually will become a core, a stellar core. So I hope you all understand that it's kind of like a life cycle. And at this point in time, in our current life cycle as human beings, we are watching this all play out. And it is truly amazing. And if you're a science buff and you like astronomy and you like astrophysics and you like viewing the stars, and hey, well, this is right up your alley. We're literally making history. But other people make fun of it. They think it's nonsense. They think that it's impossible, but they cannot prove that it is impossible. They will never be able to prove that, because this happens throughout this entire galaxy and every galaxy in the entire universe. So that is something that they will never, ever be able to disprove. The evidence is clearly right in front of our eyes. For the sun to have this much activity in the very early transitions from a solar minimum to a solar maximum is incredible. You can go all the way back to the last solar minimum, chart it on a calendar, and then take a look at how much activity was actually occurring during that transition period. Was it like this, or was it more mild? I mean, this is incredible to see this. You see this, all of this dark area all the way around this sunspot? You're actually looking through the sun's atmosphere because it's literally been kind of blown away for now. Once these sunspots in this cluster right here dissipate, degrade, and go away, the sun's atmosphere will reform. But that darker region, you're looking into the sun. Kind of like whenever we view the coronal holes, those dark regions. But what we're seeing happening is pretty amazing. And here's another good shot of the sunspot. And it does look like some degradation is occurring, but not much. We'll see what happens. Because as this sunspot continues to roll around, it is eventually, within a matter of, I'd say anywhere between 4 and maybe 7 days, it is going to encounter these stellar cores as they are orbiting again. So what I'm trying to say is, as this sunspot is progressing this way, and it's going to make its way around the western limb of the sun, it is going to come in contact one more time with the orbital path of these stellar cores, and we are going to see a massive blowout on this western limb within the next week. You can almost guarantee it. Because the magnetic fields of these objects, or at least the main large core, is going to interact with the sunspot. And it is going to create, just in layman's terms, just like an electrical nightmare. And that may cause and induce another blast, another coronal mass ejection. Now, it won't be directed towards Earth. And as the sun, rotates, it will probably dissipate away from the Earth. But these last couple of blasts, they have actually, I'm going to show you guys something. Let me jump over here real quick. We're going to look at the CME tracker. I'm going to go ahead and blow this up for you guys. So here's the Earth right here in yellow. Here's the sun in the middle. This is the latest coronal mass ejection. Look at that. Now that was directly headed towards the Stereo A Core 2 space satellite that we get views of the sun. It looks like kind of a glancing blow, but it's one hell of a hit. But you will also see the remnants of this coronal mass ejection spiral outward and impact the Earth. And that will be, close to, I would say December 4th, 5th, and 6th. That may be enough to, induce some extra volcanic activity and possibly some earthquake activity. So that's something that we're going to be monitoring and looking at over the period of the next week. But you can see that was one hell of a coronal mass ejection in a solar minimum when the sun should be sleeping, as they say. Very low activity. But during the whole entire solar minimum, we have seen anything but the sun going to sleep. We've seen continual coronal mass ejections, which have revealed the stellar cores, because the stellar cores are creating the situation on the sun. The magnetic field interaction between the two is what is causing it. And there will probably be a line a mile long of scientists that will disagree with me, but deep in their mind, they know I'm right, but they're not going to go against mainstream science and reveal something that would ruin their career. Period. I call that cowardice. They're too afraid. But you can see that, and that is one hell of a blast, and you can see the way that blast spreads itself out. What we could also do here, we could zip over to the NOAA Space Weather Center here, and let's jump over here to some dashboards. And we'll take another look at this spiral graph. Let's make it a little bit bigger. And we'll get it playing. Now this is a prediction model. And you can see the Earth right here in green. You can see the plasma density and the dates, the 28th, 29th, 30th, going into December 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. You can see the disbursement, and it is huge. It's going to make its way all the way. That will impact Mars. It will definitely impact the Earth at some point. So I'm just going to go ahead and stop that. We'll let it play a little bit more. So you see this spiral right here. So it's already past Mars. But you could see that spiral is going to definitely impact the Earth at one point. And then the remnants of it right here will eventually lash out and impact the Earth. It's not going to be anything bad. Nothing that's going to make the news, but again, we'll probably have a small geomagnetic storm. Get some great shots of aurora. There is a high possibility of some additional volcanic activity. It may wake them up a little bit over the course of these days leading past the 4th, going into the 5th, 6th, 7th, possibly even the 8th and 9th of December. We will see. We will see. So I'm going to go ahead and jump out of here, and we'll go ahead and take a look. I believe it was on the, no, not the 28th. Yesterday, 29th. I'm going to go ahead and blow this up so you guys can see the intensity of this blast. And you can see right up here, this is the November 29th. I just have it blown up real big so you guys can see this. And I'm actually going to slow it down a couple of notches. And you can check this blast out. Now this did not come from the sunspot. This came from what is currently rotating from the eastern limb of the sun. That's going to be rotating towards the Earth over the next couple of days. But the interaction that happens between the sun and the stellar core, it is not happening between the Earth and the sun, which is a good thing. Because if it was, we would be in the freaking bullseye twice a month for a pretty large coronal mass ejection. And like I've said before, based on the laws of probability, sooner or later we're going to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it is going to unleash a living hell upon the earth, wiping out our power grid, which would be really, really devastating to the entire world. Now, during this coronal mass ejection, over the course of the last several days, because there's been so much activity, I've been quite busy loading all of this data into our program, and it has come up with some pretty damn revealing data. I mean, I don't know what else to say, folks. There have been critics out there that said, that's photoshopped, blah, blah, blah. But it's not photoshopped. I don't have that program. The forensic software that I now have access to, and I've had access to for quite some time, I do have some help, but we also just got a pretty nice update with the software that is really lending us a hand in revealing what's behind all of that static and what is lying within these coronal mass ejections. All of this data has to be converted to an ultra high definition 4K. The amount of data is just huge. And then we let the system go to work. Sometimes it could take up to 4 to 6 hours. Sometimes it could take up to 8 to 10 hours for it to examine all of those frames and render the images. And then as you go through the images, you must be blind if you cannot see what comes out. And I show all of you folks the photographs, incomplete with the timestamps, and I zoom in 50%, and then I zoom in 100%, so you can see for yourself. Those pictures are not pixelated. There's no outlines. There's no fake planets put into the photographs. Because if there was, I sure as hell wouldn't zoom in 100%, because then you'd be able to see it. But I'm not hiding anything. I want you to see it. So the sun's been super duper active. And that's something that, I predicted 6 months ago. You can go back through my videos and, you go back 6 months ago. And I kept saying, as soon as we start to move into the latter part of 2020, moving into 2021, each and every day that goes by on the calendar is one more day closer to this solar maximum, solar cycle 25. We're getting closer. And the activity on the sun is going to increase tenfold, 50-fold, 100%. And astronomers and astrophysicists and scientists that study the sun, they're going to be busy. I would not want to be a man in space. I would not want to be on that damn space station if there are even astronauts up there. You know, we know NASA fakes a lot of stuff. But anyways, I wanted to show you guys a little bit of what was just recently captured. And this is on the 29th, just yesterday. Massive coronal mass ejection. Well, why did it occur? How did it occur? What induced it? Why did it happen at that precise moment? Well, the answer is on your screen. Right there. Right there. And I have some close-ups. I mean, we could zoom all the way in on that. I mean, it is right in the thick of this coronal mass ejection. This is a negative, same photograph that we just looked at. This was pulled from the cactus, the cactus program. And we could zoom in on this. I have zoomed in photographs, and I'll put all the photographs in at the end of this video, and you guys can check them out for yourself. And we could zoom all the way in. And this is a negative. Sometimes when we're dealing with the cactus, because there is so much more interference on that coronagraph, these cactus images take much longer to render out of this program because there is so much interference. And it really, I guess, has to dig through it. But this, during this coronal mass ejection, it came out pretty damn clear. And you can see it right here. There are other photographs that you will see at the end of this video that I'll show you guys that there's more than one of these objects. There are multiple. Now, one of them seems to be the main core, you know, the center. Like Jupiter and all of its moons, it seems that, you know, this object either has other smaller stellar cores or moons. I don't know what they are. Some of them could be small, rocky, metallic type planets, you know, like the Earth. Oh, hell, you know, I mean, Mercury survives in its orbit around the sun. And as long as a stellar object, like what we're viewing now, stays in motion, stays in an orbit, and obviously, ladies and gentlemen, these objects, the main core object, is in a very fast orbital path. Therefore, the direct heat from the sun affects it, but not for long periods of time. The same applies to Mercury. As long as Mercury stays in its orbit and doesn't just stop, it will survive. But if Mercury ever just stopped in its orbit, the sun's gravity would start to pull it in, and it would literally disintegrate that planet within a matter of seconds. The same applies for Venus, and the same applies for Earth, and the same applies for every single planet in this solar system. If their orbit stops, the sun will pull it in. So everything in space is in constant motion. So I hope that answers a lot of questions. Why doesn't it burn up? Well, number one, we don't know the composition of this main object. We don't know the composition of the other objects. The composition must be able to withstand its environment that it is in. And the orbital speed around the sun definitely plays a factor in why it doesn't just burn up. And then I revert back to, why doesn't Mercury just burn up? It's a teeny tiny little planet. So if Mercury's not burning up, why would a massive object 3 to 5 times the size of Jupiter, why would that object burn up? So I hope that puts all of those questions that everybody asks or everybody assumes, oh, well, if it's by the sun, it's going to burn up. Not necessarily, folks. It's not like it's pushed right up against the sun and just sitting there. It's moving. And it's moving at a very rapid pace. And I'm sure when it gets caught up in these coronal mass ejections, it is probably getting a little bit of a push. And then it resumes its orbital speed and its orbital path back around the sun. Will a coronal mass ejection ever be able to push that object out of its orbit? It would have to be catastrophic. And the sun would probably have to lose some of its gravitational power, because the sun is massive and very strong. It does have a very strong gravitational field. So even if it does push it away just a little bit, it's going to recapture it very quickly and place it right back into its orbit. But these are my theories. But, those theories are based on science. I just didn't just think that up. That is what happens in space, in galaxies, in the universe, when dealing with stars and other stellar objects. But the photographs are incredible, undeniable. For some of you that still believe in Nibiru, I would hope that after listening to me today, that you forget about the mythological Nibiru and center your attention on learning what is out there orbiting our sun now. Because our solar system is much bigger than it was when you were sitting in your 9th grade Earth Space Science class, if you had one. Now, kick back and check out the photographs that have been rendered over the last 48 hours. They are truly amazing and revealing. And once again, folks, if any of you would like to help out with Dr. Albers' medical fund, the link is in the description box under this video. Your help would be greatly appreciated. So hopefully within the next 4 to 6 months, she can get better. She can get back to her research, and she can get back on YouTube. And I know a lot of you miss her. And, I'm hoping for the best. It's ripping at my heart each and every day, watching this. And I wish there was something that I could do, other than, just taking her to the appointments, which will begin December 29th. And they're going to be costly. And it's going to be about a 4 to 6 month period. But what I'm hoping for is by the late spring of 2021 coming up, or, the beginning of the summer, that she's back on her feet, enjoying the rest of her life like she should. She deserves it. So if you can help, any donations or contributions would be greatly appreciated. And if you cannot, hey, listen, no problem. Say a prayer for her, and that would be enough. Now, folks, sit back, check out the photographs that have been rendered from our program, and please share the video. Share the video. If you take screenshots from any of my videos, please give Planet X News the credit. I don't mind you sharing the information, but just give credit where credit is due. Now check this out.